The BA.5 Omicron variant now accounts for about 65% of coronavirus infections in the U.S., according to health officials. The variant is more contagious than others in the Omicron family, and symptoms such as cough, fatigue, fever, and runny nose are common. Staying up to date on vaccines is still the best protection against this and other variants, officials say. More than 70% of adults age 50 and older haven't received a second COVID-19 booster shot. To wake up feeling rested, older adults should aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep, but achieving that target can be tricky. Sharing a bedtime routine with your partner can help you both wind down and avoid procrastinating. If you wake up in the middle of the night, do something relaxing. You are tired enough to fall back asleep. In the morning, don't hit the alarm snooze button. Instead, start your day with some stretches or light exercise to get your blood pumping. That's your AARP Minute. See you tomorrow.
Hello, my name is Lori Hendren, and I'm proud to serve as the Associate State Director for AARP Illinois. AARP, a nonprofit, nonpartisan member organization, has been working to promote the health and well-being of older Americans for more than 60 years. AARP Illinois is proud to represent all those who are 50 plus in Illinois and our 1.7 million members. And we thank you for the opportunity to be your wise friend and fierce defender. AARP's mission is to enhance the quality of life for all those as we age, leading positive social change and delivering value to members through advocacy, service, and information. AARP works tirelessly to fulfill the vision of a society in which everyone lives their best life with dignity and purpose, and in which people can fulfill their goals and dreams. Today's event of healthy living and brain health couldn't have better timing. For adults ages 50 plus, the impact of the pandemic has been tough, but more committed to regaining control. One key component of maintaining a healthy lifestyle is diet. Across age groups, about half, or 48% of adults ages 50 plus, say their eating habits have not changed since the start of the pandemic. Further, 1/3 of older adults say they eat a little more or more healthy now than before the pandemic. Regardless of which factors drive increased consumption during the height of the pandemic, more than half of these adults ages 50 plus are very concerned about their change in diet and want to make an adjustment. One key bright spot from the AARP survey is a commitment to new activities aimed at regaining a healthy lifestyle, especially in diet, as the vast majority are intent on maintaining these modifications 1 year from now. AARP Illinois is proud to offer today's event on healthy living and cooking alongside the Cookery Inc. out of Morton, Illinois. We thank you, and now to Chef Amanda from the Cookery. Enjoy. Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to your three-way session of AARP videos. I'm Chef Amanda over here at the Cookery, and we are excited to be back. And we're looking forward to hopefully having you in person for this holiday season coming up. But for today, we'll take what we can get with 3 awesome virtual videos all about caretakers and taking care of them, but also taking care of those at home. And we want to ensure that we do that by feeding them healthy ingredients and recipes. And so today we're doing some different and fun things. Day 1 is going to be taking some of our Asian favorites, which can often be very, very heavy and also very sweetened with sugar and very kind of over the top with calories. We're going to lighten those up a little bit. We're first going to make an Asian sweet potato noodle with a chicken and pork and ginger meatball. So kind of a healthy spin on taking our wheat noodles and our rice noodles out of the picture, replacing them with the superfood sweet potato, which you all know I love. And then also lightening up our meatball. Instead of doing just a beef and pork mix, we're going to do a chicken and pork mix, and then adding in some fresh herbs and ginger to really bring home the antioxidant, bright, fresh flavors, and lots of healthy cooking food. After we get done with our Asian meatballs and our sweet potato, we're going to follow that up with a really fun spring roll. And I'll talk about that when we get there. For now, if you want to look at your Asian meatball and sweet potato recipe, we're going to get started with that. First thing I'm going to do is make my meatballs, and I'm going to start breaking down all of my vegetables for that. So here I have 2 cloves of garlic. Oh, and behind the camera, everybody, we have John. He's going to be helping me out today. I'm grabbing the meat out of the fridge, John. We've got, it says a medium yellow onion, but I have this tiny little guy here from our garden, so we're going to go ahead and use all of that. And then a tablespoon of minced ginger, which we know is so good for us. This is a very natural antioxidant. I like to include it whenever I can. We've got a little bit of red chili flake. Now, if you don't want any spice in the picture, you can eliminate that altogether here and maybe add something different in its place. We've got 2 tablespoons of tamari. Now, today we're using tamari, which is a gluten-free kind of soy sauce. So we're actually eliminating gluten from this recipe as well. We're going to need 3 tablespoons of quinoa flour, and then we're going to need 1 pound of our all-natural pork and 1 pound of all-natural ground chicken. Again, you could switch this up with other meats if you want. I'm using the Jennie-O chicken and then the all-natural Tyson pork, which I got from Walmart, and then 3 tablespoons of fresh cilantro. And I'm keeping this cold in my little herb pack until we're ready. So let's go ahead and start breaking down our vegetables. The first thing I'm going to do is mince up my onion. And again, this calls for half of a medium onion, but I've got 1 small one here, so I'm just going to do the whole thing. I started by cutting off the top of my onion, and then I'm going to go right through the root of the onion, which makes my onion a little bit easier to peel off that weird grainy texture. Now, if you didn't want to use quinoa flour, you couldn't find quinoa flour at the store, which is a naturally gluten-free flour, you could literally use anything. You could use tapioca flour, you could use brown rice flour, you could use chickpea flour, which is really very comparable to a quinoa flour. They both have a super nutty flavor that works just really well with savory recipes. This onion is going to be a little trouble, so I'm going to cut that off. So yeah, any flour works. Again, we're really just trying to keep the dish gluten-free completely here. By eliminating the noodles, there's really no reason to add the gluten back in. It's going to keep the dish a little bit lighter as well. Onion does not want to skin. Fine. All right, and now to break this down into a small dice, we're just going to cut first, back through without going through. Hopefully everybody's been enjoying their summer so far. Been a hot one out there this weekend. I was thankful for the rain to cool it down, water all of my plants for me. Now that I've gone horizontal cuts, I'm doing vertical cuts, the same, back to the root without going in. Hopefully that shows up on the board. How's that looking in the camera there, John?
Pretty good.
Good, okay. And then I'm just gonna mince my onion. That way it's nice and small, incorporates well with my meat. Now typically an Asian meatball would probably be done with all pork. But again, we're substituting in a little bit of chicken here just to keep it light. And I love these meatballs and just about anything. You could make a sandwich out of them. If you didn't flavor them Asian, they make a perfect meatball for your spaghetti dish. But you all know how to make that. So today we're going to do something funky and fresh and different. All right, onion went into the bowl. Next, it's calling for my 2 cloves of garlic. So we'll do that next. I'm going to give it just a smash on the cutting board, not with my knife. That helps me to peel that outer layer of skin. All right. And then it's really not necessary to cut off these little brown ends, but I always do. Just texturally, I don't necessarily want them in there. Now that my cloves are all clean, I'm going to go ahead and break them down first into a slice. And this garlic and onion is going into the dish raw, but our meatballs are going to cook in the pan. So it's going to get nice and flavorful in the meat like that. You could cook it all ahead and then add it into there. Either way works. We're just going to eliminate one of those steps to make this dish a nice, easy weeknight dish that we could feed to our caretakers in a pinch, but also enjoy ourselves. Right, so we've got our garlic pretty nice and minced there. We're going to do exactly the same process with our ginger here. Into the bowl that goes. Ginger is a staple aromatic in most Asian food. You're going to find that. Today, for this particular part of the recipe, we just need a tablespoon. So I'm going to cut down what I need. And I've got my favorite tool for ginger here, just a little tablespoon, which I'm just going to run along there. And that will remove that peel really nice. I like to do the onion and garlic first and then use the ginger because it takes all the onion and garlic smell right off your hands for you. Once we've got that all peeled, we need about 2 tablespoons here. So we're first just going to break it down into a slice, kind of like we did our garlic. And then I'm going to go into little sticks, just by stacking a few pieces up at a time. So, and we might get a little bit more than a tablespoon out of here. And if we do, that's fine. We're going to reserve some because we have it again in our recipe a little bit later. So it's kind of smart to do a little bit extra now and go ahead and knock everything out that you need. And then we can integrate it into the recipe as the different parts of the recipe call for it. This does have 3 separate parts to the recipe, which seems a little bit daunting. But one of them is just the sauce. The other one is just some fresh herbs. And we're using Thai basil, mint, and cilantro today because those are very bright and fresh, but also our garden has an abundance of those right now. So you could switch that up. If you don't grow Thai basil or you can't find it, you can just use a regular basil. We're using peppermint, but if you had spearmint, that would work out okay as well. And I'm getting this pretty good and minced down. I don't want to have a huge bite of ginger in my meatball because that will then make everything else taste exactly like that. So I'm going to get it pretty broken down. And again, I have way more than 2 tablespoons here, but that's great because I've got it again later in my recipe. That'll be one thing less that I have to do then. All right, so there's about 1 tablespoon, and that's what it calls for. And we'll move all of this over for later. Set that off to the side. Oh, my hands just smell amazing. It says half of a Fresno chili chopped or a quarter of a teaspoon of red pepper flake, which is what we're going to use today. So literally, I'm going to feed this to my husband tonight. So I'm going to light these up and get a little bit of extra red pepper flake in there because we like to bring heat. All right, and then next it's going to be my 2 tablespoons of tamari. So that looks like this. There's a lot of different versions of gluten-free soy sauces out right now. There's liquid aminos that you could use. But I like the tamari. It gives a great flavor. I actually like both and use them interchangeably. And then our gluten-free flour. Again, this could be a quinoa flour. This could be a chickpea flour, a rice flour, whatever you have. All right, and then I've got my chicken and my pork already in the bowl. Last thing that's going in is my 3 tablespoons of cilantro here. Just going to give it a little shave from the stems. Little stems are okay. I usually pick out the larger stems. They can be a little bit woody. Gonna bunch this up. Give it a bit of a rough chop here. And we should be good to go. I think the easiest way to do this is to put on some gloves so that you give a good hearty mix. You don't want to overmix here. Just enough to where the ingredients seem pretty incorporated. Behind me, I've got a pan that's lined with sheet foil, but it could be parchment paper, whatever you want to use. And then I've got a nice little scooper to help me keep all of my meatballs nice and even. I'm going to go ahead and give these a mix. And then after this is done, I'm going to start the sauce and together that herb sear on every side. On the outside, I'm going to transfer them to a sheet pan so that we can finish them in the oven. Because again, they do need to hit 165 degrees. So we're going to turn an oven on to 375. John, let's do the oven in the kitchen because that one is really loud. I'm just barely peeking under that meatball. I'm really looking for it to have that beautiful sear before I even think about messing with it. And a lot of people say, oh, my meatballs fall apart. It's probably because you're moving them a little bit too early. They're just not ready to be moved around yet. You'll notice we have no binder in this meatball at all, except for our little bit of gluten-free flour. There's no eggs, there's no breadcrumbs adding into the mix, and they're holding together just beautifully. So it really comes down with just resisting that temptation to move those meatballs. And here's what we're looking for. Oh, this is gorgeous. Nice crispy crust. Again, my fish turner is giving me that really nice approach to turning them so that they're not falling apart. Ooh, this one's real nice there. It's summertime. It's the time to cook a lot of fish. And really, the fish here is the same process as what we're showing you today. Not messing with it, not trying to turn it until it's got a good sear on. Starting your pan when it's really hot, making sure there's enough oil in there. These look really great. Tiny bit more salt and pepper. And again, if you're watching your salt in low sodium, you can tone that down a little bit. I've got my sheet pan for them to go onto so that they can go into the oven lined up next. And again, if you're going to split this recipe and turn half into meatballs and half into burgers, I would just sear them all at one time. Tomorrow you've got a really quick meal that you can just shove those burgers in the oven and have an easy night off of cooking, which we all love. All right, these look pretty good on those sides, so I'm even going to go for a sear on the side of the meatball because more caramelization is going to equal better flavor here, no matter what way you spin it. So I'm going to turn them on their side. I can tell my pan's getting a little hot, so I'm going to turn it down just a bit. This will allow me to get a sear on every side, which is just really all around a better texture. And I'm just kind of balancing them up against each other so they'll hold still for me there. But if you can achieve that sear in here, then throw them in the oven and forget about it. You could even put them on the pan, do all of your meatballs in here, and then shove them all right back in that pan and throw them in the oven in the cast iron if you're using that at home, or an oven-safe pan. Again, just giving them a little bit of a roll around here. They're looking beautiful. Look at that one. Those look pretty good. We're going to let the other ones go in here, and then we'll go back to the cutting board while these sear off. And we will make our sauce. Going to add a smidge more oil to the pan, not much. And of course, hit these with a little salt and pepper. All right. Now check back with those in a moment, folks. For now, we'll let them go. Next, we're going to make our Asian sauce. And so it is going to be 1 tablespoon of tamari. So here we go again with our tamari. 3 tablespoons of toasted sesame oil, which I've got right here. And they do sell sesame oil that's not toasted. So I would recommend trying to find a roasted or toasted sesame oil. It really just tastes better, has a little bit more flavor. And then a 1/4 cup of rice vinegar. And this is pretty easy to find these days, right? Usually most grocery stores have an Asian section, and you can get everything that we're using there. All right, and then we need another clove of garlic. It's going to go into here. And then we need 2 tablespoons of grated or minced ginger. What do you know? We've got that already from earlier. And then a tablespoon or a teaspoon, or eliminate it altogether if you want, of sambal. Now, sambal oleus is like a chili paste that's pretty spicy, folks. So if you don't like the spice at all, you can totally cut this out. This is just to bring a little bit of heat, or you can add just a dash. You see cayenne pepper in a lot of recipes that doesn't necessarily make them hot. So just adding a little bit just kind of brings out flavors. Thank you, John. He's over there turning my meatballs so that they stay perfect. All right, and our last clove of garlic here. Add that into the mix. Good, quick slice. Then that makes our sauce for this mix. All right. Go back and check on our meatballs and have it here. Oh yeah, it's pretty beautiful. Just giving them a nice roll and turn on their sides. These look awesome. Homemade meatball is just night and day from buying a store-bought meatball. I feel like those got cooked about 50 times before they ever made it to your house. All right, my garlic is almost minced, and it looks like we need just 1 clove, so this should be perfect. And it's going to go into the bowl, and this has become my sauce for my sweet potato noodles, which we're going to do next. So that is already ready, just 5 or 6 simple ingredients there. And we've got all of that whisked, and we're just going to set that off to the side. And we'll come back to that here in a minute. Next, we've got our sweet potato. It calls for 2 large, and that's fine if you want to do that. For the sake of the video today, we're just going to do 1 large. So I gave myself a starting point by cutting off the end, and I'm just using a regular old peeler to peel it. Now, if you have a mandolin peeler, you can make thin noodles. If you don't have a mandolin peeler, you can totally use the peeler that I'm using right now, your regular old potato peeler from home, to make some nice, long, thick noodles that are about like this. I've had this dish both ways. It is excellent either way you want to go there, but I'll show you both. And I do love our mandolin peeler. We use it for a million different things around here. And I get that, I have one from Pampered Chef that I really love. I got one from Lori's Kitchen Store that I really love. And then I've got them off of the internet, off of Amazon as well. So it looks something like this, and it has a little in it that's going to separate those noodles just perfectly for you. And so I'm just going to peel them towards myself. And they're going to unleash this beautiful mandolin noodle here. But again, if you don't have that peeler at home, your regular old peeler does the trick as well. It just depends on if you want to have like a fat linguine fettuccine, pappardelle type noodle, or if you want to go more angel here. So today, for just the sake of cooking quickly, we're going to go ahead and use the mandolin peeler. It's amazing how many noodles a sweet potato will make just from 1 sweet potato. I'm turning it ever so slightly just to make sure I'm rounding that sweet potato out nice and evenly. Look at all those noodles that gave us with that mandolin peeler. It's just beautiful. And go ahead and get the rest of them off of there. John's got our meatballs almost finished up, and we'll show you what those look like in just a moment. And then he's going to pop those into the oven so that we can get them up to that 165 that we're looking for. All right, that's probably about all we're going to get out of that sweet potato before it gets to the danger zone. Oh, let's see what John's got here for us. Absolutely beautiful meatballs, all nice, toasty, golden brown. Lots of good seasonings going on. He's going to pop those in, probably only about 15 minutes to get those to the 165. And again, I mean, that's something that could all be done the day before to make yourself a nice meal really super fast. All right, so here we go. We've got our noodles. We're going to have a wok here. We're going to add a little cooking oil. And then after we've got them a little bit brown, we're going to toss in the sauce that we have just made. The noodles go pretty quickly. So for right now, we're going to set those off to the side. Oh, beautiful. And they're super. While I love rice noodles and spaghetti noodles and everything else, we don't really get a lot of nutritional benefits out of there. So why not swap it out with something that is packed full of vitamins and good things for it. All right, the last thing on our vegetable is to knock out our herb salad here. Okay, so we've got a lot of great things going on in this bowl. Okay, so we've got our scallions, some really nice ones here. We've got a little bit of fresh mint. My garden is crazy out of control with mint right now, so I'm putting it in anything and everything I can, besides just my cocktail stuff. A little bit of cilantro. This is Thai basil. So a lot like regular basil, but it has just a little bit of a, kind of a little bit of zing or a little bit of spice, it seems like. It's not spicy. It just has a little bit different of a flavor. I feel like sometimes it's almost like clove. And it's pretty easy to find these days. You can get it at the Asian market. We grow it ourselves here in our area. It's done tremendous. Okay. And then we've got one serrano chili. And this is going to be an optional thing. Again, if you don't like any spice, you can cut that out. You could also use a less spicy pepper if you wanted. First thing I'm going to do is strip all of my leaves from the stem for my Thai basil here. And this is just a little salad that goes on top just to kind of brighten and lighten everything up. It's a great way to use up herbs in your garden if you're a big herb grower. And again, if you can't find the Thai basil, just substitute in the regular basil. It'll be delicious. I used to have a difficulty finding Thai basil plants that I could grow on my own. But I found them everywhere this year. It was no problem. Oh, that smells wonderful. It has a little bit of like a star anise kind of smell to it. All right, same thing here. And again, we're using peppermint. Stripping the leaves from that. All right, and we're just going to break our mint leaves down first. I'm just kind of rolling them up so they're all into one. And I'm just going to do a ship and nod cut. It just means thin ribbons. And we do that same cut with our basil. The next thing we're going to do is a spring roll. And so if you're watching this video again later on at home and following along, it would be a good time to go ahead and get a little bit of water heating up for your noodles to cook your spring roll noodles so that they can be cooled down a little bit and ready for the wrapping process. My basil, I'm doing exactly the same thing. I'm finding all those big leaves. I'm kind of stacking those on bottom. And then I'm just putting all my little leaves inside here. In like no particular rhyme or reason, just kind of stacking them up. And I don't mind the little tiny stems on the Thai basil at all. They actually have really good flavor. They're not woody at all. All right, gathering those up and gonna do just kind of that same exact type of rough chop. And then into the bowl that goes. We're gonna do our green onions next, scallions. If you have chives going nuts right now, that would be a really good substitution here. And these are pretty massive green onions, so I'm gonna use 2. And we're just going to do a little tiny dice, moving across the grain where I have these tiny little circles. I think it'll work a little bit nicer with this herb salad. People ask me all the time, do I use the greens or the whites? And I always say both. If you're not a huge onion person, the white parts can be a little more astringent than the green, so I usually cook them into that part of the recipe, and then I use the green for garnishing because it's just so pretty. And that's going right into our herb salad. So now we've got our Thai basil, our mint, and our scallions in there. Lastly, we just need our cilantro. I like to just keep it on the stem. Give it a little quick shave. And again, your little stems are okay. Your big stems are a little bit bitter, so I typically get rid of those. The little stems have pretty good flavor, so I'll use those when I can. All right. And again, this is just an herb salad, just for a little pop of brightness and freshness that goes on top of the dish. So you can substitute anything that you've got there. It obviously, kind of embraces that feel. We'll pop around. Gonna look beautiful up against sweet potatoes on our plate. All right, I'm gonna fire up our wok here. We love woks for cooking around here because they transfer heat so well and they just really get the job done pretty quickly. All right, so here we go. A little bit of veggie oil right into the pan here. I'm gonna roll that around. And again, you could add a little bit of sesame oil to this if you wanted, just to amp up the flavor. And if I was doing 2 sweet potatoes, I would probably do 2 batches. So that again, I didn't overcrowd my pan and get all that steam on. But I think here that we can probably do all of these in the pan. I do like the mandolin noodles because they're going to go pretty lickety split. You want to retain a little bit of their texture, so I'm not looking to cook them, to death. I'm hearing that sizzle. And I'm kind of spreading them out in my pan so that they can get a little bit of a good sear going on. And so I've got a nice flat layer. A little bit of salt and pepper. Again, eliminate that if you're on a low sodium diet. We're using all kosher salt or Himalayan salt in our recipes. No need to add iodized salt into your life. because we're getting plenty of that through the foods that we buy. And again, I'm just going to let these get a tad bit of color, and I'm going to give them a flip and let them get a tad bit of color on their other side, and then I'm going to add the sauce into it. I'm going to let the sauce cook for a little bit because it does have the raw ginger and the raw garlic in it, and we want it to cook into the noodles a bit and get some flavor. As you can see, that didn't take very long because we are using the mandolin noodles. You're going pretty quickly.
Oh, they smell amazing.
Oh, it does. All right. I can smell those noodles. They got a tiny bit of color on them. So now I'm going to make a little well in the center of my pan. I'm going to add that sauce right into there. I'm just going to let that garlic and that ginger kind of cook down a little bit. And I'm slowly stirring in my noodles, incorporating all those flavors. These are great hot right out of the pan. They're also good if they sit for a little bit and get kind of room temp. Look at how pretty those are. We've got a little bit of time left on our meatballs until they temp out. So while we're waiting on those, we'll work on our spring roll ingredients, kind of get that all going together, and then we'll plate both of these dishes up at once at the end. That looks pretty good. I think we can set that off to the burner. The last little ingredient that we had for this particular dish is this serrano pepper. And I'm going to do this on the side. That way, if people want to pick it off, they can. And I'm just doing it paper thin, keeping all the seeds in. Doesn't make. We'll keep those off to the side for our garnish on the plate later on. All right, looks like we're in business here. So that's the end of that. We'll see how that all comes together on the plate here in about 10 minutes. While we're waiting for that, we're going to go ahead and make our spring rolls. So we need a couple things going on with that recipe. First thing we're going to need is a bowl of room temp water. This might even need to heat it up just a smidge. We're going to use these rice paper noodles. You may have seen these at the market and thought, what the heck do I use these for? Well, the great thing about this particular recipe is you don't fry these. We're going to just soak them in a little bit of water to kind of bring them to a where we can work with them and they're foldable. And is that for noodles or rice? These are the noodles that we're using, and I find these at the Asian market. And I just take a pack. And this is a rice flavored vermicelli, and we're using a rice flavored wrapper. So again, if you're following that gluten-free lifestyle like I am, this is a very easy recipe to modify by using gluten-free soys because the papers and the noodles are both already noodles in there. All right, John's got some boiling water for me. He's going to pour over my noodles here. These don't take very long. There's more to it. Key to success on this spring roll recipe is getting everything ready in advance. That way, when it's time to roll, everything's right there. It's kind of like a, Subway. They need to have everything chopped and ready. That way, when you go through the line, it's good to go to put everything in there. I have made these before with a little bit of chicken inside that's cooked, but really they're also awesome with a little bit of shrimp inside. But today we're going to make them all and salt. This is our Vietnamese spring roll recipe. are following along with us at home. And this really could have any vegetables that you want inside, but I try to find some things that have a lot of color going on. So we're going to go ahead and get everything out. We're going to need our rice wrappers, which I already showed you, and we're going to need our vermicelli noodles cooked and cool. So right now we're going to boil these for about 5 to 6 minutes. And I've got a cold water bowl ready on deck here that we're going to shock those into to kind of keep them from sticking together. Then we've got in our bowl here a little bit more of our Thai fresh basil. Now, if you did make these two dishes together, the idea is to keep it simple and easy and be able to utilize some of the ingredients in both. So if you made your big basil salad that we just made for our meatballs for the topping, it could also be the filling for the inside of your spring roll. So we're going to need a little bit of this broke down in exactly the same way we just did. And again, if you can't find that Thai basil, it is really okay. You can just use a regular basil. Everybody's basil is probably going crazy right now. So you need a few good excuses to integrate that. Righty. And then next, we need our 6 tablespoons of chopped minced mint. So again, as you can see, it's pretty much the same as the herb salad that we just did. And this is just going to become the filling. Right? And then we need a little bit of cilantro. And find the end. Righty? And for these herbs, I'm just going to do a bit of a rough chop. And you can toss it all together. You can keep it separate. It's whatever you like. I'm just going to move mine to the top of the board, just like this. We're also going to need some spinach leaves. I'm just using a regular old store-bought spinach, but I am plucking these little stems off. All right, we've got boiling noodles over here now. So those shouldn't take too much longer. Just going to give them a little bit of a stir. Just a little bit longer on those. Got our spinach leaves almost ready. These woody stems will poke right through that little spring roll wrapper. So you want to make sure that you remove those. That's important. And if you were going to do shrimp or chicken in here, you would want to pre-cook that. That way you're not putting anything raw inside. All right, and then next we need some carrots. Go ahead and give this one a peel. Into the compost bucket it goes. Thank you, John. And then I'm going to use that mandolin peeler again, because again, I'm making a roll. And anything I want to roll is going to benefit from having my ingredients kind of broken down into strips that are thin. Sometimes I put red pepper strips in here. Yellow pepper strips go nice. It's really whatever you want to stuff it with. Bean sprouts go in here really well. So we got a little carrot. You definitely want something with a little red or a little orange, something with a little brightness to it. All right, what's left? We've got our carrot, and then our English cucumber is our last ingredient that's going to go inside. And again, I'm going to leave the skin on just to get some good color, but also because that's full of good vitamins that I want. I'm going to cut it in half first, and then I'm going to cut it into planks. And then after I have these planks, I'm going to cut it into real thin strips, which is exactly the process that we would use for sushi fries. You have some really seedy pieces. It's easy to clean them out right there. Beautiful little strips of cucumber there. Ready to go. All right, and we'll set that off for later. This does have a little dipping sauce that goes on the side that is just absolutely delicious. So we'll whip that up real quick. And so it is going to be 3 teaspoons of fish sauce. I think our noodles are done over here. We're going to shock them right into some cold water. All right, so back to our sauce. We're going to do 3 teaspoons of fish sauce. If you're allergic to fish, you don't have to use fish sauce. You can eliminate that altogether. It just gives a little bit of a very Asian-y flavor that they call umami, or kind of like savory or meaty to the sauce. But if you want to keep these vegetarian, you could eliminate that altogether. 1/4 cup of cold water, and that goes. 4 tablespoons of fresh limes, or the juice from 5 limes. We're cutting that down a little bit today. My lime. Oh, they're right here. I got them right here in front of me in a different bowl. I'm going to make sure that I give a good roll to my limes. Now, these are really big limes, so I definitely am not going to need all 5 sticks. But I want to release all the juice that I can in them. So I am rolling them so that I can feel them go from super hard to super soft. All right, so water, fish sauce, our limes, a clove of garlic, 2 tablespoons of sugar. And then we're using a hoisin sauce, which is kind of like a fancy stir-fry sauce with all the flavors and goodies in there. And recently, I've been able to find the gluten-free soy sauce everywhere, or hoisin sauce, rather. So that's pretty exciting that we can keep this gluten-free as well. All right, so water, fish sauce, lime juice, sugar, and all of that goes. And then a little bit of our sambal. So again, this doesn't add too much heat to the dish, honestly, just a tiny bit. But you could leave that out if you really didn't want it in there. 3 tablespoons of our hoisin sauce. And so you can see the label there. This is the gluten-free hoisin. So again, it's like a fancy stir-fry sauce. I think that gave us about 1, 2, and 3. Give that a little stir. I actually think the hoisin went with the peanuts, and I forgot. That's all right. Now it's in our sauce today. And then 1 clove of garlic. Yep, 1 clove of garlic. And I think we are ready. Toss our other clove of garlic. All right. We're going to cut that down exactly like we did our other one. Slice this first. I want to get a pretty good mince on this because it is going into the sauce. All right, here we go. Into the sauce mix. Give this a little stir. Ooh, limey. It's absolutely fantastic. So the only things we'll be missing is our peanuts, and we can kind of serve those on the side. That way, if you have somebody that has a nut allergy, you are avoiding that altogether. Next thing we're going to need here is a big old bowl of water and our spring rolls. We're going to start by taking one of our spring roll discs. We're going to put it down into the water. This is usually about a 35 to 45-second process. As long as it's submerged, you don't need to turn it, but you should start to feel it kind of get a little bit slimy. Sometimes you have to heat up your water just a down well. Run for a little bit. So just slightly warm. You don't want it to be hot. As you can see, it's starting to get very pliable here. And that's our goal. And you'll kind of know. It'll be super soft, but still able to work.
The longer soak of the water,
Yeah.
not very warm.
What an interesting take on spring. Because typically we're used to seeing a pastry crust, then we're going to deep fry it. So it's very hard to get spring roll that's healthy, but this is a Vietnamese spring. So you can see it's still pliable, but my hands aren't going through it. So this is actually just great. We're going to lay that down on our surface. Flat as you can. There we go. Nice and flat. All right. And I always like to start with spinach because it kind of creates a little bit of, a barrier that won't allow our veggies to break through the skin. So a little bit of spinach down first. Thanks, Jeff. Then we're going to go in with a little bit of cucumber. If you were doing your red pepper or your shrimp, this would be a good time to lay those in. A little bit of our carrot. And then a little bit of our herb salad. So a little cilantro, a little mint, and a little Thai basil. We're going to go side to side like this. And pick our spring roll wrapper up, and it is very stretchy at this point. And we're going to roll it over and then just tuck and roll. Beautiful little bright, colorful spring roll. You can cut these in half for service so that they really show off the inside if you want. All right, let's do another one of those. So again, lukewarm water is going to make that go a little bit faster than my cold water did. I bet our meatballs are almost done. We'll be able to plate up, and voila, that's quite a meal. Almost there. And if it has a little tear on it, it's okay. We'll roll that side up. I love these spring rolls because they're just so fresh. It's a really good way to use up those summer herbs. Oh, and you'll feel it start to go kind of crunchy too. Okay, it's ready for roll. There. There we go. Put that down. Again, I like to line my spinach in there first. I'm going to make this one a little bit bigger. A little bit of cucumber. Carrot. Oops, almost forgot our herb salad. Don't forget that. It's the best part. Herb salad, a little bit of each herb going in there. Okay. Tuck that up and over to get it nice and tight. Roll it on up. Beautiful. See that out? All right. How are our meatballs doing, John?
They are ready.
All right, cool. I'm going to go ahead and plate that up. And then we'll see you at the next show. Next little thing here I have is just some peanuts I want to chop up. Of course, you could use a food processor, but I need such a small amount. All right. That looks pretty good. I cut that in half. They look so much nicer. Going off the inside there. Beautiful. A bit of sauce going on. Little sauce cup. Give that a quick stir. That right on there, and we'll serve a little bit of peanuts in there. Right on top. Here we have our spring rolls with our Asian lime dipping sauce. Beautiful. All right, next we're going to get some of these awesome sweet potato noodles. Just look at how well they held up there. Glistening with their sauce. A little bit of that down into the bowl. A little bit of Asian salad and our meatballs, and then we're going to finish that. Serrano pepper. Thanks for joining me today, folks, for our healthy spins on some of our Asian favorites. We took our usually fried spring roll and turned it into a Vietnamese spring roll for a fresher outtake that uses up all of our summer herbs. And we took our traditional rice or wheat flavored noodles, swapped them out for a superfood healthy sweet potato noodle, and then swapped out our typical pork and beef meatball for a chicken and ginger and pork meatball to give us this delightful low-fat version of spaghetti meatballs, but in flavors. Thanks everybody for joining us today. We'll see you back tomorrow where we're going to be making two of my favorite bowls, an acai fruit bowl, and then also a farro and grilled vegetable. We'll see you then. Thanks everyone.